Well, this may be it. This could be the end for the Phillies. They're in Game 4 of the NLDS, and they're currently down 2-1 to the New York Mets. Ranger Suarez on the mound for the Phillies today. His first start in the postseason. His first start since September 27th, and going up against Jose Quintana, who has had the Phillies number in the past and pitched very well in that clinching game for the Mets against the Brewers. Again, Tyler Mroz for Heat Ratio Sports. Owen Lapp, Luke. I'm sorry, I don't want to butcher your last name. Paglia. Paglia.
Proceeds to butcher it, but it's okay.
Yeah. Hey, it's all good. You wouldn't be the first one to do it. So, yeah. Anyway, yeah, I did say your last name wrong. So
that's okay. We're here. That's all that matters. But Ranger Suarez, Jose Quintana, a pretty brutal game last night. Mets crushing the Phillies. I would say crushed because it was never really close in my mind. 7-2. Tonight, the JD Martinez is getting the start at DH. No Jesse Winker, who had that second deck moonshot off of Aaron Nola yesterday. Martinez gets the start against the lefty, but Phillies made some pretty significant lineup changes against the lefty. Weston Wilson is getting the start today in left field. And also, Bryson Stott and Brandon Marsh are both in the starting lineup today. It's the normal same 1 through 6. Schwarber, Turner, Harper, Castellanos, Bohm, Real Muto. But then 7 through 9 is Stott, Wilson, and Brandon Marsh is batting 9th, which we haven't really seen. A lot of people are questioning Rob Thompson's decision to start Brandon Marsh over Johan Rojas. Johan Rojas is 5 for 9 in his career against Jose Quintana. Luke, we'll start with you. Since I butchered your last name, you get to go. Thoughts on the Phillies lineup today?
I think it's a great decision. I think that Rob knows this, and I think the rest of us know it. You just have to throw everything you got at this game right here. And so what does he do? He puts our best bats in that lineup. He doesn't think about the matchups. He doesn't think about, right-handedness, left-handedness. He doesn't think about who's been doing what. He just says, these have been my best, most reliable bats this season, and these are the guys that we are going to see in the lineup tonight. He trusts these guys. He's shown that he trusts these guys, and these guys have produced all season. And so he's just going back to that level of trust. He's like, this is a win-or-go-home game, and I trust these guys. I want to see these guys produce in this game right here, and that's what they're going to do.
Yeah, you absolutely nailed it, Luke. It's just, how are we putting together this lineup, guys? Our 9 best hitters. Put them in. Doesn't matter the matchup. Doesn't matter the defense. Just our best 9 hitters that we can throw out in this game, which I love. I love that mentality. Also, as we get started, hopefully this isn't the last pregame show, but if it is, I've enjoyed doing this so much with you guys. So, just a note to that. This has been awesome. If it is the last pregame show that we do, if the Phillies lose, but hopefully this lineup is able to put together enough hits that they can win this one, and we get to come back and do another one for Game 5. I don't know how to describe my confidence level. I'm confident in our offense, like I said last night, at all times, but I absolutely know that it's a possibility that they could go out there and do what they did last night and just not hit at all. But I love Rob's strategy, and we'll see if it pays off.
What you said about doing this pregame show, it's been a blast. I can't thank you guys enough for doing this. It's been so much fun so far, but it's not going to be over yet. We got to keep the delusional going. We have 10 more at least. I don't know how confident I am. Honestly, I really am not that confident. This offense, sure, you always have confidence that there's a chance that they could do something, but with how cold they've been, there's a stat in 4 of the last 5 postseason games, they've scored 2 or fewer runs, which is pretty abysmal from a team that heavily relies on their offense. That's their main thing, is how good their offense is, and their offense has not been that good in this playoff so far. But they just haven't shown us anything that says otherwise, that they are going to come out looking different from last night. They've struggled against the lefty in the series so far. David Peterson shut them down. Sean Manaea shut them down last night, and now you're going up against a guy who has success against the Phillies. This was his game against them on September 13th. 7 innings, 3 hits. I know there's only 4 strikeouts, but 0 runs. That's all that matters. Like, honestly, if you give up 0 runs, I don't care if you give up 20 hits and you give up 0 runs. That's a phenomenal start. And his last 5 games against the Phillies does have a 4.50 ERA. Phillies saw him 3 times this year, 2 runs in the first game, 3 runs in the second, but that's all old. You look at what he did recently, and this was something that was less than a month ago, and he completely shut this lineup down because the Mets in September are a completely different team than the Mets from June or July. Same thing with the Phillies. They're a completely different team. So what they've done in September, it shows. And I am concerned with the matchup against Quintana tonight. What about you guys?
Yeah, I would say I am worried. I'm definitely worried because you're absolutely right. He's pitched super well. But I think that if the Phillies offense is on, if the Phillies offense is on, they can hit anybody. We've seen them in past postseasons be able to hit anyone that's been thrown at them. They roughed up Spencer Strider pretty good previously, and you're not going to see many guys better than him when he's on. So yeah, it's this offense. You can throw any ace at them, and they can hit them. The question is, will they? But yeah, Jose Quintana's been really great. But if the Phillies are clicking, I'm confident that they'll be able to hit him.
Yeah, I agree with that. Baseball that is played in the first 162 games of the season versus the moment October rolls around is completely different. I mean, you see teams that struggled early in the season, that struggled in September even, but put up enough wins to squeak into the playoffs and then go on a tear in the playoffs. I mean, the 2022 Philadelphia Phillies is a great example of that. They barely got that 3rd wild card. If they had not added a 3rd wild card team to the playoffs, we would not have made the playoffs. And then we go to the World Series. Granted, we lost that World Series, but we still made it through the playoffs and went to that World Series. And so I think it goes to show that teams in October are very, very different than the same teams that you see, April through September. And then just like Owen said, like when the Phillies lineup is hitting, it doesn't matter who you throw at them. You've seen them rock guys like Strider, and you've seen them struggle against other guys that probably aren't even close to as good as a pitcher as Strider. And so I don't think that this game is determined by who the Mets have on the mound. I think this game is purely determined by does Philly have the bats going? Because if the bats are going, you can throw the best pitcher in the MLB, whether they're on the Mets or not, at the Phillies, and it's not going to matter because our bats are moving. But if the bats aren't moving, it doesn't matter who's pitching because we're not going to hit them.
And this is going to segue to our keys to the game because Owens is about the bottom third of that Phillies lineup. So, Owen, thoughts on the bottom third today?
They haven't done nothing, but they've basically done nothing. They've combined for 3 hits in this series, which is just not going to cut it if you're trying to win games. We like to focus on the big guys, and they need to come through, and they've had their moments. Overall, the OPS of the top 4 in the Phillies lineup is, I think, over 800. So absolutely solid. You can ask for a little bit more, but they haven't been the problem. The problem has been the guys on the back half of the lineup, particularly the bottom third, who've been basically non-existent. So they really need to step up. And tonight, it seems like a lot of that pressure is going to be on Weston Wilson, Brandon Marsh to get it back to the big guys at the top of the lineup. And that's also a big part of they haven't strung hits together in innings except for the end of game 2. And that's another part of it, of the bottom of the lineup being able to put a couple nice at bats together, a couple hits, get it back to the top, and then you keep the momentum going. They haven't had any of that momentum throughout their lineup throughout this series. So we really need those bottom 3 guys in the lineup to contribute.
Luke,
sorry. I think that this bottom third of the lineup is key. And as much as, we need to see production out of those top guys too, like this bottom third of the lineup is really what's going to happen. I think stringing hits together is so so important. And if you have the first 4 guys hitting, but nobody else doing anything, it's hard to string those hits together, because then if you get to that bottom third and it's just out, 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 it's not going to matter if you've got 3 guys on, because those guys aren't getting hit. If you leave runners stranded on base continuously throughout this game, that's what is going to lead to your demise.
Yeah, I 100% agree. And this lineup, at the bottom of the third of the lineup, they've done, like Owen said, they haven't done nothing, but they've done pretty much nothing. But it's a little bit different today with Bryson Stott batting 7th. I don't know how I feel about that. I mean, he comes in yesterday. I get he doesn't have a great at bat, but I don't get what you expect when you have him on the bench for 99% of the game. Then you bring him in expecting him to do something out of the hit one out. I don't know what Rob Thompson was expecting, but I don't know why Alec Bohm is still batting 5th. I honestly think he should be at the bottom of this lineup just because of how bad he's been. I know that he's still your guy. He was the starting third baseman for the National League, but I'm always a hot hand guy. I will preach that till the day I die. Go with the hot hand. And Bryson Stott is doing a lot better right now than Alec Bohm, even JT Realmuto. But besides that, lineup has been made. The lineup is finalized. Stott, Wilson, Marsh. I need to see something out of Brandon Marsh today because he's shown us really nothing at all. And there's been questions as to if he's the long-term answer in that outfield. Will the Phillies go after a Mike Trout or a Juan Soto? Who knows? I mean, it's way too early to tell. That's off-season talk. But there's been a lot of question marks surrounding Brandon Marsh about how he can't hit the lefty. So he gets a chance to show that tonight. And he usually does better against lefties when he has competition. So I'm looking at Weston Wilson, who's one spot ahead of him. I'm looking if he has any kind of competition, because then you kind of feel maybe we start Wilson and Rojas rather than Marsh, because if Marsh isn't giving you offense, well, he has decent defense, but it's nothing special. Rojas is giving you great defense. And if Wilson's giving you great offense, why wouldn't you feel obliged to start them too? So I think Brandon Marsh has probably the most to prove out of these, but Weston Wilson could easily earn a starting spot for the rest of the postseason with a great game tonight. But Luke, going to your key, you're just saying, take it back to the bank.
Yeah, I mean, obviously this key makes it seem like we have to win tonight, which we do. I mean, it's a win or go home scenario. And even if we win, we do get to go home and home to the bank. And I think that is key. I think if you can pull out the win tonight and take this series back to the bank, there is no reason why you should not win this series. To take New York out of New York and back to Citizens Bank Park into a rocking atmosphere in a Game 5 of the NLDS, I don't think there is any better way to close out this series than win tonight, take it back to your home crowd, your home stadium, and win it all there. And I think that's what they like. They need to play tonight's game as if it's the last game that they're ever going to play, because that's how they have to approach it. But you also have to approach it in the sense of, we win tonight, we get to play in our home stadium again tomorrow night. And that is a crucial advantage to winning this series.
Yeah, that was well said. I think that the thing that the Phillies were really good, one of the things, obviously they were good at a lot of things. One of the things that the Phillies were really good at in their postseason runs the past 2 years, where they were more of an underdog, was against these teams that were higher seeds. They did such a good job closing out at home. Against the Braves, both times they closed it out in Philly. One of the pieces of Bryce's Bedlam at the Bank home run being so big was that if the Phillies lost that game, they were going back to San Diego, and nobody wanted to do that. And so Bryce hitting that home run was like, oh, we did it. We got it in Philly. We don't have to travel back to that crazy ballpark. So now, as the higher seed, the Mets are in that Phillies position where they're trying to close out at home. And so the Phillies, need to get one in New York to be different than those other teams that they beat in the past, get it back to Philly, and then anything can happen in Game 5.
That is 100% true. Just having a game in Citizens Bank Park, that's a divisional rivalry game for a chance to go to the NLCS. That's just, the vibes are going to be just electric. That whole stadium.
That's why you got this bye. That was the whole point.
That was the whole point. And now if you're not even going to give your team a chance, like you're not going to play your hearts out tonight in Queens because you don't want to, I don't know. It's just tough. Certainly confidence level, I don't know. But my key, obviously, offense is number one, but Ranger Suarez, I've been vocal about how I think today should be Zach Wheeler, but Suarez is, I read somewhere on Twitter that he's only going to go about 3 innings. But again, that could be longer depending on his pitch count, depending on if the Mets are hitting him well or not, how his command is, how his speed looks. We'll see if he can finally get back to normal with his velocity. It's been down since he's come off the injured list, but pitched recently against the Mets a couple weeks ago. 5 innings, 5 hits, 2 home runs, but he also gave up 2 home runs. And this isn't just his game against the Mets. Look at his game, the 27th. So the last time he pitched, he went 2 innings, 7 hits, 6 earned runs. He's given up 3 home runs in the last 2 starts. His September ERA in 2 games was a 5. That was his August. His September ERA with 5 games was a 6.04. And 2 of those were against playoff teams. And the other 3 games didn't really do much. He had a great game against the Marlins, but besides that, he's given up 2 or more runs in all of those starts. So it's really down the Ranger if he can keep the bullpen out of this game, because the bullpen has not been reliable, and Rob Thompson, the way he's been managing it, has not been great so far. So Ranger Suarez, he needs to go as long as he can go, as deep into this game. Christopher Sanchez is available out of the pen tonight. Rob Thompson said that he could throw 30 to 35 pitches, and Zach Wheeler would only be an emergency. So I don't foresee Wheeler coming in, especially because it seems as if they're ready. They're keeping him ready for Game 5. Guys, what's your concerns, thoughts, anything about Ranger Suarez tonight?
Well, I want to throw it back to you real quick. What do you think is the best case scenario for Ranger tonight?
I only see him max going 5 innings.
Okay. Would you be happy with that if Ranger goes 5 and we're assuming he gives up a run or 2, maybe ideal scenario, he probably doesn't have a shutout in him, but if it's 5 innings, 2 runs, like the last time he played the Mets, would we be happy with that?
I'd be happy. I mean, as long as they don't have 20 runs, as long as it's in reach, because when it's 6-0, 7-0 in the 7th or 8th inning, game's kind of out of reach by then. But if it's 5th inning and you only give up 1 or 2 runs, that's doable.
Yeah, I think I would have hope. I would have hope from that. So that would be great if we can get that from Ranger. Obviously concerned about the inconsistency. We don't really know what to expect. It feels like the offense where, Ranger could be the playoff Ranger we've seen before, and he could lock in, and we're like, wow, Ranger really came up clutch for us once again. Or he could just, look like he's looked recently, and it's not good at all, and we're all really sad. It's all so up in the air. He's such a wild card. Hopefully he's able to, I don't know. We keep talking about flipping switches. The offense needs to flip a switch. Hopefully Ranger's able to flip his playoff switch. But yeah, definitely concerned, cautiously optimistic, just like with the offense.
Yeah, I mean, Ranger scares me. This whole, just the inconsistency of it. It's terrifying. Kind of wish we would have seen Wheeler out there today, because if we saw Wheeler, I mean, that he's throwing everything you got at it. And then if you go back to the bank tomorrow, on Saturday, you have, or Friday, you have Christopher Sanchez to pitch at home, which we've obviously seen his abilities at home are really good, better than when he's away. And so it just scares me. And I wish we would have had more of a chance to see Wheeler tonight. And I know that we could still see Wheeler in an emergent situation, but it almost does not seem like Rob wants to pitch Wheeler tonight. And so it's kind of a hard situation to be in. But again, we had talked about this last night. It doesn't matter who's on the mound if the bats are going. So
that is very true. But We cooked up some interesting parlays, and we have a guest joining us. So let's see what we got cooking today for the HRS / All Philly All the Time Triple Plays of the Day. Please welcome Florida Man Sports himself, gambling expert, Mr. Jacob Hopkins, here to deliver some parlays here for us today. So Jake, welcome on to the pregame show.
Thank you for having me, guys. And I wouldn't say expert. I've had some bad beats in my day, but it's
That's
a
a
pleasure to be
great
on the
intro
show,
for
y'all.
somebody coming on to give us bets.
Yeah.
I'd say experienced. How's that? I know what not to do. Like, for example, I know not to take a role player to have 2 RBIs in a game.
You would never recommend something like that.
No, I would have never recommended to do that.
But Jake, what are your picks for today's game?
All right, so let's go ahead and check our little handy-dandy cheat sheet. First off, I'm not taking any Phillies to hit any home runs today. Jose Quintana has given up 0 home runs against the Phillies all year. Well, however, you have his counterpart, Ranger Suarez, who we all know has been lights out in the playoffs. He's got a 1.62 ERA in the playoffs. He's got a 9.16 Ks per 9 in the playoffs. For context, by the way, that 1.62 ERA in the playoffs, that's better than Mad Bum, who's considered one of the best playoff pitchers in baseball history. So I really like anything that's in favor of Ranger Suarez. I understand he will probably come out of the game earlier, which leads me to which leads me to believe he's going to have under 1.5 earned runs today. So that's the first leg. I also like him hitting over 3.5 strikeouts because if, like you said earlier, he's probably going to go 4 to 5 innings. If we're sitting at 9 strikeouts per game, that's 1 an inning. That's 4 to 5 a game. So that puts me at, I like the over 3.5 strikeouts as well. And then finally, we have, the captain of the whole team, Bryce Harper. He has reached base safely in 15 of his last 16 postseason games. By the way, that 17th game, that's when the Phillies got no hit by the Astros. That's how far back this streak goes. So give me Bryce Harper over 0.5 to just get a base hit today, which puts us at a nice little plus 385, so $10 to pay out to 48.50.
I really like that, Jake. So we got your triple play. You have Ranger Suarez under 1.5 runs. Is that correct?
Correct. Yes.
Ranger Suarez also over 3.5 strikeouts, and then Bryce Harper over a half of a hit at plus 380. So, Jake, I really like this. So let's see if you like what we got today. All Philly all the time. They're going with some interesting ones here. So, guys, what's the logic behind this?
Jake knows his pitchers, so with his parlay, I trust Jake on the pitching bets. So I would love if Ranger is able to hit those. We have one pitcher bet, Jose Quintana, over 6 or more strikeouts. In the other 3 games, we have bet on pitcher strikeouts, and we've hit all of them, but we've been under by 2 to 3 strikeouts every time. So we're bumping it up a bit more. Quintana's been great, so 6 or more strikeouts for him. Bryson Stott, 2 or more total bases, banking on him being back in the lineup. Like we were saying, 7 might be a bit low, but all it takes is a double for him to get this one. And then the Phillies, money line. Hopefully they are desperate enough to get this win and get it back to Philly.
Thoughts, Jake?
I don't see Jose Quintana really recording that many strikeouts today.
I would love that.
In this season, he's only sitting at 18% strikeout wise. That's very, very below average. And with the Phillies having, I think it was 5 righties in the lineup, that number actually drops down to about 16% against righties. So I really don't see him being able to record a lot of strikeouts. His ground ball rate is actually through the roof against both lefties and righties. So I see there being a lot of ground outs. I see him being in good counts, but not being able to finish it, and probably someone rolling over a cutter, a curveball, or some kind of off speed like a changeup.
I don't love that part.
I don't either. But this is the HRS triple play of the day. Ranger Suarez under 12.5 outs recorded at -105. Rob Thompson only wants him going through this lineup once. He could even be out before then if he's struggling. I don't really foresee him going further. I hope I'm wrong on this, but under 12.5 outs, that's what, 4 innings. So I don't think he's going to get past there. Weston Wilson to get 2+ total bases at +235. I always do a bet when Wilson is in the lineup against the lefty. I know he doesn't have a great stat line against Quintana. He's 0-for-6. But Austin Hayes was in the starting lineup last night, hitting over 300. What was it, 354, we said, against lefties. And he looked pretty abysmal out there. Same thing with Edmundo Sosa, who had a good history with Sean Manaea, and he looked pretty awful against him. So it's baseball. Stats don't always line up with logic of what actually happened. So I always like Wilson against the lefty. So 2+ total bases. And then Bryce Harper over 1.5 hits plus runs plus RBIs. He always comes through in a big spot. So regardless if the Phillies win, lose, get blown out, have a close game, Bryce Harper always does something. So him to get a hit, run, RBI over 1.5, I really like that. So Jake, thoughts on the HRS triple play?
I have a question. Where did you find under 12.5 outs recorded? Because that would have been on my parlay if I had been able to find that. Everywhere I was looking kept saying 11.
It's
I could very well see Thompson being very quick to pull Suarez out of the game. And fun fact, I had to do a lot of digging to find this. But when you bring a starter out of the bullpen in the playoffs, this has happened for about, it says 69 1/3 innings since 1995. Those starters have a 1.25 ERA. So if they pull up, yeah, I see Owen's face. 1.25 ERA when you pull a starter out of the bullpen in the playoffs. So I could very well see Topper being very quick to do that. I like that the under out thing. However, with Wilson, as a Rays fan, I'm used to watching no names show up in the playoffs and do absolutely nothing. So I could very well see that happening. But then the Harper thing that falls under my little streak of the 15 of 16 games, him reaching safely. So I definitely like that one. I actually contemplated throwing that on mine as well.
So we got that. And then our bonus bet. We almost went with JT Realmuto. We always like to do a home run just as a for fun bet. But we have Kyle Schwarber at +360. He's the most deadly person to hit a home run, I feel like. I mean, he has the best chance. 7 for 24 against Quintana. Does have a home run. But Power Schwarbomb, he only has 1 so far in this series. So I believe he's due for another.
Again, I think it just comes back to the fact that Jose Quintana has not allowed a homer to the Phillies this season. I
that means
think
we're due.
that
Exactly.
I wouldn't say that. I would say that you're due for a few ground outs as well. With the way they were swinging the bat yesterday at the first pitch, Quintana's more of a junk ball pitcher. You're going to see a lot of rollovers tonight, which is going to mean Quintana's going to be super pitch efficient tonight.
Which is exactly what Sean Manaea did, being pitch efficient.
Mm-hmm.
So if that is back-to-back nights, that's going to be a fun watch for Philly fans.
And they missed a lot of hits. Their 3 hardest hit balls were all outs. Bryce Harper had it. Schwarber just missed the home run. And Castellanos, the line-out double play. Kyle Schwarber had some questionable base running last night. Just a little bit. Had that double play. That's just a tough play. But regardless, Jake, I want to thank you very, very much for joining us. I'm sure you will be back very soon. You will definitely be on for Game 5, I hope. If there
I will
is,
hopefully I'll be back for Game 5.
How is the weather in Florida right now?
I don't know. I haven't left my house in about 48 hours, but the forecast is showing rain. A little bit of rain.
Your power's still on, so that's a good sign. Because I know it's
power's still on currently. I mean, we're not supposed to get hit until like probably I think 4, 5, 6 a.m. I'll still be up, but
probably playing college football. But Jake, I want to thank you again for joining us today. Really, really appreciate you. Any final thoughts, final predictions for you on this game today?
I see it being a very low-scoring game. You have a proven playoff pitcher like Ranger Suarez. You have the possibility of Christopher Sanchez coming in as a starter, which I referred to earlier. And Quintana had a .72 ERA in September. didn't allow any runs against Milwaukee, so he's hot as well. This is going to be a very low-scoring game. In the ninth inning, there will be a save situation. I don't know from who, but there will be a save situation. But if I had to guess, I'd take Mets 4-2.
Jake says Mets 4-2. So we'll see how right he is in the post-game show. But Jake, thank you again so much for joining. You had some terrific stats. We'll see if that parlay hits. So hopefully we make people some money.
Free the A's. Thank you for having me.
Cheers, Jake. Oh man, that's Jacob Hopkins. Everyone, you can follow him at Jacob Hopkins 3, I believe, 03, or Florida Man Sports. So make sure you're following him on Instagram or TikTok. Has some entertaining content there. So playoff tracker, we have Guardians at the Tigers tonight. Talked about Manuel Clase the other night. I believe are they playing right now?
They are playing right now. I believe the Guardians were up 1-0 last I checked. I could be wrong. Oh, Tigers are up 2-0. My bad. Had it flipped.
Montero went 1 inning. So it looks like a bullpen day for the Tigers. Is that Alex Cobb starting a playoff game? It is Alex Cobb on the mound today for the Guardians. 3 innings so far, 3 hits, 2 runs. Were they both? Riley Green hit a single, and then Phillies legend Matt Vierling, he hit a sac fly. Love seeing him do well. He's batting third in that lineup, and he's been pretty productive for them, not just in the regular season, but in the postseason as well. Sad we traded him for Gregory Soto, but nonetheless, thoughts on this series today?
Yeah, it's dang it. Luke and I are we're messing up our timing today. We've been good the other shows.
Yeah,
you can go, Luke.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I think it's still going to continue to be a shootout series. I think that, I mean, the way it's tracking, it looks like the Tigers are going to win tonight, but I wouldn't count out the Guardians by any means. I think they have just every possibility. If they keep it to a 2-run game, every possibility to come back later in this game and win it. And I think that it's going to go to 5 games. I don't know if we've said that earlier in this, in these shows yet or not, but I do think this is going to go to a game 5, and I still think the Guardians are going to win it. But yeah, it's going to be an entertaining series to watch through and through. So keep an eye on that game tonight before you tune into the Phillies game.
I want every game in these playoffs every series to go 5 games. They're all so good. I just want as many of these games as possible. Yeah, this game is big for the Guardians because kind of like how the Phillies in game 1 got to go up against the Mets in their bullpen game and didn't fare very well against them. It's a big opportunity for the Guardians to go up against the Tigers bullpen, which has been good, but it's not a top bullpen in the league. So if they lose the Tigers bullpen game and then they got to face Skubal, I don't know. Are the Tigers planning on throwing Skubal in 4 or 5? I don't know what their plans are for that, but regardless, you're going to face Skubal later in this series, so you want to jump on the Tigers bullpen and win this game if you can. So going down 2-0, it's got to be a little bit scary for them.
As of right now, no projected starters for the Tigers. They don't play game 5 until Saturday, so I think that would be enough rest for Tariq Skubal. He pitched when? Monday? Was that Monday he pitched? Yeah, Monday.
Yeah, Monday.
So Saturday, I feel like that's plenty of time. Even Thursday, pushing it a little bit. So I don't know if he'll be in tomorrow. If it's
depending on the outcome.
Yeah, so it might be depending on that, and he might be on some kind of a pitch count. But going back to the other American League game, Yankees at Royals. That series is tied 1-1. Royals won the last one. Is in Kansas City, their first playoff game since 2015 when they won the World Series. I think that was the last time they made the playoffs. So first game there. What are you guys anticipating to see from that?
I'm really excited to see that Kansas City stadium because Kansas City fans are pretty great. They don't always get their flowers because, especially the Royals, again, haven't been around a bunch. But really excited to see that stadium. I'm hoping that Bobby Witt's able to do something in this game because that crowd would explode if he finally has his first big hit of the series. I think that would be so electric. This one's huge for the Royals because you're at home. You have so much momentum, so much potential for momentum. If they get any big hits early in the game, the crowd is going to be so fired up, and I think that could deflate the Yankees pretty quickly. Also, you're not going up against the best pitchers the Yankees have. The Yankees got really lucky that there's an off day in between these, because they used basically their whole bullpen in the last game. I guess they didn't get lucky. They knew there was an off day, so they're like, let's take this risk. We can use our whole bullpen because of an off day, but still crazy how many relievers that they used. So the Royals, if they can get to the Yankees bullpen early again, I think that they would love that. And yeah, a huge swing game. Game 3 always is the swing game in these. So they saw what the Mets did. They saw what the Padres did. They can see the Tigers now leading. It seems like the lower seeds in these game 3s are having a lot of success.
Yeah, I think this game is absolutely crucial for the Royals, getting to play at home again. Like we said, for the first time in quite a long time that they're getting to play back in Kansas City. And it seems like the way that they ran through the Yankees bullpen the other day, if they can do that again, like you said, Owen, I think that they win this game. And quite frankly, I think if they win tonight, they win the series tomorrow, or whenever they play next. I don't know if they play tomorrow. Whenever they play their game 4. I think the Royals will win the series in that game 4 if they win the game tonight. I think they'll just have the momentum, and I think they'll just see a Yankees pitching staff that is tired, that has been pitching a lot in these last couple games, and I think the Royals are going to capitalize on that at home in Kansas City and win the series.
And Aaron Judge really hasn't been a factor so far. He's 1 for 7 with 4 strikeouts. So not the greatest series for him, but I'm looking at the Royals playoff history. It's kind of sad. So they became a team in 1969. From 69 to 75, they missed the playoffs. From 76 through 78, they lost in the ALCS, missed the playoffs, lost to the World Series, lost in the divisional series, missed the playoffs for 2 years, lost in the championship series, won the World Series in 85. From 1985 to 2013, they missed the playoffs. So they literally almost went 20. They went over 20 years. They went like 25 years, almost 30 years of winning the World Series and then just missing the playoffs. Lost in the World Series in 2014, won it in 2015, and they haven't been back since. So it's been 9 years. They go on so many droughts with not making the playoffs. It's pretty sad, but they do have 2 World Series. They're 2-1 in the World Series. Or 2-2. Sorry, they're 2-2 in the World Series, but potentially another appearance, because some teams are weird like that where they just don't make it often, but when they do make it, they make it very far. So yeah, Jake said the Royals could be worse. Go look at the Rays. Yeah, the Rays 1.5 World Series appearances to the Phillies in 08 and then the Dodgers in 2020. I huge asterisk on 2020. I don't count that really. They played 60-something games. I don't think it really mattered. Look at the Dodgers. The Dodgers now can't even beat the Padres. But you expect them to win a World Series in 2020 when there's shortened team. The Marlins made the playoffs. Let's not forget that. But going to the other game that could have an elimination. It's the Dodgers and the Padres. Padres taking it 6-5 last night in San Diego. Crowd was electric. And guys, is it just me? Or does it seem like the Padres might be the hottest team in the entire playoffs right now?
Yeah, I think the Padres are on fire right now. I mean, after the chippy play in LA, after that second game, and then Padres coming back to San Diego, playing in their home stadium. I don't know if you guys saw this. I saw some videos of Padres fans outside the stadium shaking Dodgers players' cars as they were driving into the stadium, which is kind of insane. They were washing cars with Padres rally towels. It was kind of crazy. Padres fans may be pretty crazy. I don't know. I've never been to a Padres game. But what I do have to say is that I agree. I think the Padres are one of the hottest teams in the playoffs right now. I mean, to put up 6 runs in an inning is pretty crazy, let alone in the playoffs is another thing. And I mean, it's kind of wild that they put up 6 runs in the second inning and then didn't seem to do much the rest of the game in terms of scoring runs. But clearly those 6 runs in the second inning last night were enough to beat the Dodgers in a close game. And yeah, I genuinely think the Padres win it in 4. As much as we'd love to see it go to 5, I think they've blew out the Dodgers, and I think that there's just not much that they can do at this point to overcome the Padres and the momentum that they have.
Yeah, that game last night was electric. The Dodgers, like we talked about, had a lot of pressure on them to win that game, and they couldn't do it. And now, yeah, the Padres have so much momentum. They seem so confident. The amount of swagger that team has, and when they're rolling, it's so scary. Yeah, I would be like you said, Luke. I would love for this to go to 5, but it doesn't seem very likely. The Padres seem kind of unstoppable right now. And whoever faces them in the NLCS should probably be pretty scared. It's going to be a great series in the NLCS, no matter who advances. But the Padres are good for them, honestly, with the amount of changes that they've gone through. We're not going to like the Padres if we manage to sneak out of this NLDS and face them, but the amount of different changes they've had to go through, it looked like they might have to rebuild, and then now they're back and they're on the brink of beating the Dodgers again. So it's really impressive by them.
Yeah.
And it's going to be a bullpen game for the Dodgers tonight in an elimination game. That's why I've been preaching that the Dodgers were not even going to make it to the championship series, because they're too hurt on the pitching side. They keep getting hurt. Tyler Glasnow, Clayton Kershaw. I don't even know if Bobby Miller's still pitching right now for them. But Walker Buehler is not what he used to be. I mean, you have Yamamoto. Dustin May's out for the year. So you're missing all your great pitchers. So now you're really relying on Walker Buehler in 2024. I love Walker Buehler, but he hasn't been that great. Going up against Dylan Cease, I know he hasn't been great in the playoffs so far. 3 in a third inning, and he gave up, I don't know, his ERA is 13.5. So wasn't a great showing from him, but Padres at home with all the momentum going up against a bullpen, like the bullpen game. I don't get how a manager can do this. And I think this is the final game that Dave Roberts is going to manage for the Dodgers. I think he's been pretty awful in the playoffs, just really carried by a really great team. And his managing has not been great. There's always been the injuries. Oh, well, it's injuries. Well, at one point, do you look somewhere? You're spending over $1 billion on this team, and you're not even making it to the championship series. So I think it starts at managing. I think Dave Roberts is gone. Now that they have Ohtani, the leash was very short. I said it in the beginning of the year. If the Dodgers don't at least make it to the championship series, then I think he's gone. And it's looking like that's going to be the case. So tonight very well could be the final time we see Dave Roberts in a Dodgers uniform, but not just Philly moments tonight. We're going to start with something Philly, something that happened as soon as we got off the pregame show yesterday. I didn't get to talk about it last night, but Devin White was one of the big free agent signings on the defensive side for the Eagles. Released. Didn't even play in a single game. So what went wrong?
Yeah, it's hard to make a comment on it when you haven't seen anything from him. It's one of those things where it's like, man, there was so much hope that he could have been a huge signing for the Eagles, that he could have been an absolute stud at linebacker for the Eagles. But then there's also the fact that he just didn't play at all. And so it's like, am I sad? Or am I upset with it? Maybe a little bit, because there's a lot of potential there. Clearly he was, great before being on the Eagles, and not that he's not great now, but we just haven't seen anything from him. And I think that it's one of those things where it's an unfortunate situation, but it's also not one that you can have a ton of emotion about, because you didn't really see anything from him. He didn't add anything to the team this year. He didn't take away anything from the team this year. He was just kind of there.
The last thing we saw from Devin White in an NFL regular season was when he got benched by the Buccaneers, and then he gets brought in by Philly in the offseason. And great point, Connor. That's a good reason to cut him. Just such a weird scenario where it seemed like the reports from camp, he was the starter at linebacker for the majority of the time, and then like all of a sudden he was hurt, and then he wasn't starting, and it just like it seemed like he was trending up, and then it was just straight off a cliff, and then he's gone. So I don't understand what was happening in training camp where the reports were so positive and it seemed like he was going to be a good addition for it to change so suddenly. But yeah, a pretty crazy few months for the Eagles with Devin White.
He takes less money to sign with the Eagles, apparently. All throughout training camp, looks great. You'd think he's going to be the number one guy. And then the day before the Brazil game, boom, he has an injury. And you're like, huh, he's not even traveling with the team. And then Connor, aka Underdog Sports, said, make sure you are following him, posts the Underdog of the Week every week. This week was Tank Bigsby of the Jaguars. But Tony, I know, speculated that something went on behind the scenes with him and Fangio where he said that Dean and Bond would be the starter and White wasn't happy with that. I'm not sure how true that really is, but it is very suspicious that you haven't really seen him with the team all that much and hasn't really played. But now he's released, has not signed with the team. I'm sure he will be within the coming weeks, much like Shaquille Leonard, where it was Eagles or Cowboys were going to sign him, and it was built up as like the free agent to get in the middle of the season. Linebacker too. Didn't really do much, but I don't think he's going to do a ton wherever he goes. Like you said, he was benched last year. He was benched for a reason. Todd Bowles is not a guy who's going to start people that kind of mess around, dilly-daddle. So if he thinks you're not good enough to start, he won't start you. So that was a very telling sign. And then plays for Vic Fangio, one of the most respected defensive coordinators in the entire league, and doesn't even play a game for the Eagles, which is a bit of a disappointment. But going to some injury news, the Texans, Nico Collins, the wide receiver #1 on that team, and arguably a top 5 receiver this year in the NFL. He's on IR with a hamstring injury, out a minimum of 4 games. So, Owen, starting with you this time, how big of an injury is this for the Texans?
It's huge. I haven't looked at who they're playing in their next 4 games, but anytime you lose a top 5 receiver in the league, it's going to hurt no matter what. He's been amazing this year. I don't think anybody's particularly worried about the Texans as a team. Like, they'll still be fine. They've got a great receiving core with Diggs and Tank Dell. They'll just get more targets now. So it's not like a terrible thing for the Texans, but for Nico Collins, it sucks. He's having such an amazing year. And so you hate to see that for him get interrupted where he's on pace for some amazing stats. Right after he got paid, he's proving that he's worth this deal so far. And then to have that happen, that must be really frustrating for him. But the Texans will survive. They'll do the best they can without him. And then they'll definitely be happy to have him back.
Yeah, I think it's a hit to the Texans. And like Owen said, specifically Nico Collins, who's having an incredible year. And personally, looking at my fantasy team, I had to start Tank Dell this week anyway because of injuries on my fantasy team. So, obviously I would never wish for Nico Collins to have an injury. That would be absolutely atrocious. But it does bode in favor of me having to start Tank Dell. And I think he's a young, talented receiver, Tank Dell. And I think that this is a really good opportunity for him to show what he's made of and either earn a higher spot on that Texans depth chart or gain the interest of other teams that are maybe looking to trade for a young, talented receiver. And so I think while obviously it sucks that Nico Collins is in this situation just because of how great of a year he was having, it opens the window for a young receiver like Tank Dell to show the league what he's really made of.
I 100% agree with you. I think these next 4 games, you have to establish something with Tank Dell in the same offense as Stephon Diggs, because you saw last year when Tank Dell was healthy, he looked like one of the better receivers in the National Football League. And he's a really good receiver, just doesn't get as many targets this year. You have a very crowded offense. Joe Mixon's in the backfield. You have Dalton Schultz at tight end. You just brought in Stephon Diggs. Nico Collins obviously was balling out. But now that Collins is out, you have a chance to rebuild that chemistry. Show what you saw from last year. I'm sure more teams are going to double team Stephon Diggs now, put more attention on him. Tank, that's going to open a lot of opportunities for Tank Dell. And I think this is crucial for the Texans, especially going into the postseason later. They have to establish the chemistry and that bond between CJ Stroud and Tank Dell. Just so when Nico Collins comes back, then you're like, oh my God, we have to cover Nico Collins, Stephon Diggs, and Tank Dell, who's been balling out the last couple of weeks. So I think it's crucial that they get him involved one way or another. But more injury news. Eagles rivals the Giants. Kayvon Thibodeau did undergo wrist surgery this week. He is considered week to week, so Eagles may not see him next week. But Luke, starting with you, thoughts on Kayvon Thibodeau and what this does for the Giants defense?
Yeah, I mean, obviously the Giants in themselves are not a crazy powerhouse team. But Kayvon Thibodeau is obviously one of the bright pieces of this team. He's an absolute stud. And I think that he's shown in the couple of years that he's been in the league what he's really made of. And I think it's, unfortunate that he is not maybe going to be playing for the Giants for a couple of weeks. Obviously, like you said, he's week to week, so we can't know for sure. But for the teams that are playing against the Giants over these next couple of weeks, their offenses can feel a little safer knowing that Thibodeau isn't out on the field, because he's been dominant in his performance with the Giants.
Yeah, injuries always suck, especially with these younger guys who are having good seasons. You hate to see that momentum for them get killed week to week. Not too bad. The Giants, I guess, are trying to stay in the division race, kind of, with how the Eagles and Cowboys are playing. I don't think anyone expects them to really do that much. But yeah, for Giants fans, that is definitely a blow to your defense, which had a great week last week against a pretty underrated Seahawks offense that's put up some really good numbers. So coming off of a really good performance and then you lose one of your guys. So not great for the Giants.
Good news for them is they do still have Brian Burns, one of the better edge rushers. Very inconsistent, but when he's on, there's not many people that are better than him. But getting back to the Phillies, some comments. David, checking in from Cedar Hills, Texas, said Bohm should be benched again. Clearly didn't learn from his last benching that he should be seeing more pitches. I hope I'm pleasantly surprised tonight, but my hopes for a win aren't that high, unfortunately. So thoughts on Alec Bohm not being benched?
It's hard to address this because there's a part of me that says you need to bench Bohm because he has been atrocious this postseason and even in September. It's been awful to watch him because it's been quite unbearable. But then again, you've seen Sosa do absolutely nothing this postseason either. And we said last night, you got to go either worse or worse. And it's like right now there's not a great option. But I think what Rob is doing here is he's going back to his main guy, back to that starting third baseman that was an all-star, that was in the home run derby, and just putting his trust in him and saying, hey, I've seen you do it before. It's time for you to do it again. Because once that switch flips, he's going to be on because we know what Bohm is capable of. And so I think there's the hope there that it's like, at this point, you got to throw everything you got, and Bohm is what you got right now because Sosa's not doing anything that Bohm hasn't done. So I think that's really where Rob's decision came in here to start Bohm tonight.
Absolutely agree, Luke. Nailed that. Rob Thompson's going with his guys. If you're going to go down, we're going to go down with our guy, Alec Bohm, our starting third baseman. Yeah, we're going to go down guns a-blazing with our best people. And I think I would love to hear after the game a story of like maybe Alec Bohm does something in the game and he's like, yeah, I had one of the veterans come up to me and talk to me. I think it would be so big if, I don't know which, any of the vets, whoever can connect with Bohm the most, if one of those veteran guys, Cassidy, Schwarber, Harper, is able to go up to him and basically reiterate what we're saying, just like, you're our guy, you're our third baseman, we're with you no matter what, like, you're in this lineup for a reason, we believe in you. because his confidence just seems to be at an all-time low. And we've seen it pretty low before. It does not seem like he's confident at all. And so I think it'd be really great if one of the vets was able to, I don't know how you do it, just somehow get through to him and get some confidence into him and just reassure him that they've got his backs, because the fans, unfortunately, the way Philly fans are, it won't seem like we have his back until he performs. And then everybody will be like, yeah, let's go, boom. And some guys just aren't built that way. It worked for Casty, where he was like, they annoyed me and then I locked in. Boom, maybe not as much, especially with the way his confidence is right now. So I think he needs some support, and he's not going to get it from Citi Field at all. So hopefully he's able to get it from the clubhouse.
You guys nailed that. And I remember one game where Alec Bohm was over 5 and the rest of the lineup was wheeling and dealing. And then Bryce Harper just went up to him. You could obviously tell Alec Bohm was a little flustered, was a little upset. And then Bryce Harper just went up and started talking to him. And I think he just said, he's like, you're our guy. Like, you've done this before. It's okay. Everybody else is doing it. You don't have to do it tonight. You've been doing it for us for the whole season. So I really hope he has somebody that's been talking to him, whether it's Rob Thompson, Schwarber, Harper, Castellanos, one of the leaders in that locker room, because that's their job as leaders of this team. You have a guy who was an all-star starter this year, and he hasn't done anything in the playoffs. He's swinging at the first pitch he sees and not doing anything with his at-bats. And coming off of a game 2 nights ago where he was benched in the playoffs after you were an all-star. So that's got to mess with your head. And one of these guys, like you said, Owen, they just have to give him some guidance. I think if Alec Bohm has a coming out game, now would be the perfect time. If I think either game 4 or 5, he's going to have multiple hits in one of these games. If there is multiple games, and then championship. If the Phillies, if they make the championship series, I do think he's going to turn a switch. He's going to figure out what he's been doing wrong and just start getting on base. But we got Steve checking in, Mets fan here. I think much like game 1, it's going to come down to the late innings and the bullpens. Phillies offense will not give in. It's going to be a dogfight. I agree. I don't think it's going to be that high scoring, but it wouldn't surprise me if the Phillies came out and crushed the Mets 10-1 tonight. It really wouldn't, because that's just how the Phillies offense operates. They don't show up, and then the very next night they drop all the runs in the world. So I do think I'm with you, Steve. It is going to be a dogfight, and it's really the bullpen, Ranger Suarez, Chris Sanchez, maybe Zach Wheeler. I think it's really going to come down to the pitching tonight.
Yeah, it's gonna be a really stressful game, more stressful for the Philly fans, because the Mets, at least you have that cushion of you can't get eliminated tonight. But it's gonna be a very tense game, because the Phillies, obviously with their backs against the wall, are gonna be doing everything they can to win, and the Mets don't want to go back to Philly. They're gonna have their crowd behind them, so I feel like every extra base hit in this game is going to feel massive, because they'll be few and far between.
Yeah, I don't have anything else to add. You guys covered it. It's going to be a phenomenal day to watch baseball. It's going to be a phenomenal game to watch, and it's going to be a dogfight.
We got Yuki Matsui checking in. Owen, to your point, your key was the bottom third of that lineup. The Phillies' bottom of the lineup is 1 for 32 in this series so far.
That is awful.
Yeah. That is just unacceptable. But final predictions. Guys, we've predicted the Phillies win in all 3 games. We are so far. So, Luke, starting with you, what are your final thoughts?
I mean, I can't sit here and tell you that I think the Mets are going to win, because I feel like that would just be – I mean, where's the Philly fan in me if I'm sitting here telling you that the Mets are going to knock us out of the playoffs tonight? So I think the Phillies are going to win. I think they're going to bring it back to the bank tonight. And yeah, it's going to be a dogfight. Low scoring, 5-4, Phillies win.
Oh, 5-4. Dude, guys keep predicting these such stressful situations. I'm going to do the same thing. I was, even before Jake said his prediction, but now that Jake said it, it's a nice little parallel. The exact inverse of Jake's. He had the Mets 4-2. I'll take the Phillies to win 4-2. Yeah, probably low scoring. I don't think that either offense is going to erupt in this game. It's going to be close. We're going to be super stressed out. But the Phillies get a big hit or two when the game is tied 2-2, somewhere in the middle, late innings. And they go up 4-2, and then they hang on at the end, and we go back to the bank.
In this postseason, the Mets have scored 8 runs, 3 runs, 4, 6, 6, 7. So this is a hot offense. Unless they run into a brick wall like the Phillies offense does, which I don't foresee happening, then honestly, non-biasedly, I think the Mets are going to win just because all the momentum's in their favor. Phillies they haven't shown us anything. They really haven't. And I want to think that they have. I would love to be on here preaching saying, oh, well, it was a close game last night. It wasn't. And you're going back into that environment. The body language was pretty awful. And, that's just baseball. So the baseball fan in me is saying Mets 6, Phillies 1. That's the baseball fan in me. The Phillies fan in me is thinking this is going to be a blowout or a convincing win. And then we'll save the close game for Friday. So the Phillies fan in me is saying Phillies 9, Mets 4. So if either of those come true, hopefully it's the last one. But hoping that either of those come true. But that's going to do it. That's going to do it for us here today. Hopefully it's not the final pregame show, but postgame live 10 minutes after the final out, hoping to be talking about a win, hoping to say we'll see you all on Friday. But you never know. It's up to the offense. It's up to Ranger Suarez. It's up to the bottom third of that lineup. And we just need to bring it back to the bank. That's all we do. It is go big or go home today. So again, postgame is live 10 minutes after the final out on All Philly all the time and Heat Ratio Sports. So make sure you are liking, commenting, and subscribing, pressing that notification bell. You get notified as soon as we go live on YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, and now X, Twitter, whatever you want to call it. Major thank you to Jake Hopkins, Florida Man Sports, for joining us for the betting segment today. We'll try to win some money with that. We'll give an update in the post-game show on how we did. So that's going to do it for Owen, for Luke, for Tyler. This has been the Phillies pregame show. We'll see you all at the postgame show. Go Phillies, everyone.